The emergency beacon shrieked across 17 frequencies simultaneously, dragging Commander Vesh from her afternoon meditation with all the grace of a malfunctioning cargo door. She pressed 3 of her 4 hands against the console, her translator implant working overtime to process the panicked chirps and growls flooding through the communication array. All units, this is Patrol 7. We have a situation at the human settlement. Coordinates 38 Mark 7, requesting immediate backup. I repeat, immediate backup. Vesh's mandibles clicked in irritation. Another human incident. Wonderful. Just what she needed to make this rotation aboard the orbital station, Mercy's Hope, absolutely perfect. The humans had been on this frontier colony world for barely 3 cycles, and already they'd managed to cause more diplomatic headaches than the previous 15 species combined. Patrol 7, this is Command, Vesh responded, forcing her voice into something approximating calm professionalism. What is the nature of your emergency? Please be specific. The response came through broken by static and what sounded distinctly like heavy breathing. Commander, there's been an incident at the Morrison family homestead. The parents were called away on emergency medical transport. Their child was left behind, and now there's a predator situation. Vesh felt her secondary stomach clench. A human child. Alone. With a predator. This was exactly the kind of scenario that ended up requiring 17 different incident reports and a personal appearance before the Galactic Council's Ethics Committee. She'd heard the stories, of course. Everyone had. Human children were apparently fragile, helpless things that required constant supervision. Unlike most civilized species, who produced offspring capable of basic survival skills, human young were notoriously dependent. Define predator situation, Patrol 7. It's one of the creatures the humans call a honey badger, Commander. According to our xenobiology database, they're Class 9 aggressive omnivores from the human homeworld. The family apparently, and I cannot stress this enough, apparently kept one as a companion animal. Vesh had to replay that last part 3 times to make sure her translator hadn't glitched. A Class 9 aggressive omnivore. As a pet. The humans kept a Class 9 aggressive omnivore as a pet. Of course they did. And the child? She asked, already pulling up the deployment roster on her secondary screen. Inside the dwelling with the creature. The honey badger won't let us approach. We've been attempting peaceful contact for the last 40 minutes. Every time we get within 50 meters, it charges us, Commander. Through the viewport behind her console, Vesh could see the colony world rotating slowly below. Its surface a patchwork of different settlement zones. The human section was the smallest, tucked into what other species had deemed an unsuitably dangerous region, filled with excessive predator activity and unstable weather patterns. The humans had taken one look at it and declared it reminded them of somewhere called Montana, which apparently was a compliment. I'm dispatching additional units, Vesh said, her fingers flying across 3 different input panels simultaneously. Do not, under any circumstances, harm that creature unless it poses an immediate threat to the child. The last thing we need is an interspecies incident involving a dead human pet. Understood, Commander. But you should know, our scans indicate the child is completely unconscious. No movement, minimal life signs. We think the creature might have already. Don't finish that sentence, Vesh snapped. I'm coming down there myself. Maintain your perimeter and keep monitoring. I'll be planetside in 20 minutes. She severed the connection and stood, all 4 arms working to secure her ceremonial sash and badge of office. Through the window, a transport shuttle was already prepping for launch, its running lights blinking like judgmental eyes. This was going to be a disaster. She could feel it in her primary spine. The descent through the atmosphere was blessedly uneventful, giving Vesh time to review everything the galactic database had on honey badgers. The more she read, the more her confidence in a peaceful resolution evaporated like water on a solar panel. Native to Earth's African continent, Mustelidae family. Known for aggressive behavior disproportionate to size. Thick skin resistant to stings, bites, and small arms fire. Documented attacking creatures many times its own mass. Preferred response to threats, violence. Secondary response to threats, more violence. Noted for tenacity, fearlessness, and what human researchers described as weaponized spite. One researcher's note made Vesh's translator pause and request confirmation. The honey badger's natural state is angry. All other emotional states are temporary aberrations. Fantastic. Just fantastic. The shuttle touched down on the Morrison homestead's landing pad with a gentle bump that did nothing to settle Vesh's nerves. Through the viewport, she could see the patrol members that had called in the emergency. They were arranged in a loose semicircle around a modest prefabricated dwelling, the kind humans seemed to prefer with its unnecessary square corners and inefficient heat distribution. Each patrol member was armed with standard non-lethal deterrent weapons, and each one looked like they'd rather be literally anywhere else in the galaxy. Lieutenant Cross, of Enlathi, whose blue carapace was showing stress fractures along the edges, practically sprinted to meet Vesh as she disembarked. His translator crackled with urgency. "Commander, thank the ancestors you're here. The situation has not improved." "Status report," Vesh ordered, her eyes scanning the homestead. Everything looked peaceful. Too peaceful. The kind of peaceful that preceded very loud, very complicated paperwork. The honey badger, the humans call it chaos, is positioned on the dwelling's front porch. Cross gestured with 2 of his 6 limbs toward the structure. "We attempted to use sonic deterrents. The creature ignored them. We tried olfactory irritants. It sneezed twice and then charged us. We even tried broadcasting calming frequencies based on Earth mammal biology. It appeared to find this offensive and marked territory on Lieutenant Threx's boot." Vesh's mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement if the situation weren't so dire. "And the child?" "Still inside. Our scans show the offspring is in what humans call a bedroom, 2nd floor, displaying vital signs consistent with deep sleep. Commander, it's been over 2 hours since the parents departed. Shouldn't the juvenile be showing signs of distress, hunger, fear?" "Human young do require frequent feeding," Vesh admitted, pulling up her datapad. The Morrison family file showed a 6-year-old child named Tommy, brown hair, approximately 1.2 meters tall, fond of collecting rocks and asking questions that made adults uncomfortable. Standard human offspring, in other words. But they're also capable of sleeping for extended periods. The question is, why hasn't the child woken with all this activity? A screech from the direction of the dwelling interrupted her thoughts. Vesh turned to see a creature that could only be chaos emerging from the shadows of the porch. It was smaller than she'd expected, maybe 40 centimeters long, with gray and black fur that looked perpetually rumpled. Its face bore the distinctive white stripe she'd seen in the database images, and its eyes, those dark, beady eyes, were fixed on the assembled patrol with the kind of focus usually reserved for targeting computers. The honey badger made a sound somewhere between a growl and a cough, its entire body radiating what Vesh's empathic implant registered as pure, undiluted aggression. "It's been doing that every 15 minutes, Cross whispered, like it's checking to make sure we're still afraid of it. "Are you?" Vesh asked. "Terrified, Commander. Absolutely terrified." The honey badger satisfied itself that the patrol was maintaining proper distance and retreated back into the shadows. Vesh noticed it didn't turn its back on them, instead shuffling backward with its eyes locked on the group. "All right," Vesh said, formulating a plan that would probably get her demoted. "We need to establish communication with the child, confirm they're safe, and extract them without harming the creature. Suggestions?" "We could use the emergency override codes to open the dwelling's door," offered Sergeant Mira, a Quillan whose tentacles were knotted with anxiety. "Send in a drone. Visual confirmation of the child's status?" "The creature destroyed 3 drones in the first 20 minutes, Cross said flatly. "It appears to take personal offense to autonomous technology." Vesh was about to respond when her comm unit chirped. She activated it to find her second-in-command, Officer Pratt, a human exchange officer who'd been assigned to the station 6 months ago. His face appeared on the small screen, and he was trying very hard not to smile. Commander, I heard about the situation. Permission to offer assistance? Granted, Vesh said, perhaps a bit too quickly. You understand your species better than our database. What are we dealing with here? Pratt's smile broke through. Commander, with all due respect, you're dealing with about 40 pounds of concentrated stubbornness guarding a sleeping kid. The honey badger isn't going to hurt Tommy. It's protecting him. How can you be certain? Because that's what they do, ma'am. The Morrisons didn't get Chaos as a pet. They rescued him from a wildlife rehabilitation center back on Earth. He'd been injured defending a burrow from predators twice his size. The family bottle raised him, and he imprinted on Tommy specifically. That honey badger would fight a freight hauler if it got too close to that kid. Vesh processed this information, her mandibles working in thought. So the creature is protecting the child from us? Yes, ma'am. From Chaos's perspective, a bunch of armed aliens showed up and surrounded his family's home while his favorite tiny human is sleeping. He's not being aggressive. He's being a very good boy. The way Pratt said "very good boy" suggested this was some kind of human phrase with deeper meaning. Vesh filed it away for later cultural study. So how do we resolve this without harming the creature or causing an interspecies incident? Send me down, Commander. Let me talk to Chaos. We speak the same language. 20 minutes later, Officer Pratt's shuttle touched down, and Vesh watched the human emerge with the kind of easy confidence that her species seemed to possess in abundance. He was tall by human standards, with dark skin and close-cropped hair, wearing his uniform like he'd been born in it. In his hands, he carried what looked like a sealed container. "Brought treats," he said, holding up the container. "Peanut butter. Universal peace offering in situations involving earth mammals." Cross made a sound like air escaping from a pressure seal. "Lieutenant, that creature has been menacing us for over 2 hours. What makes you think it will accept food from you?" "Because I'm not scared of him," Pratt said simply. "And honey badgers can smell fear. Makes them cranky." He walked toward the dwelling with the kind of casual stride that made Vesh's primary heart rate increase. The assembled patrol members edged backward, weapons at ready but pointed safely away. Vesh kept her hand near her communicator, prepared to call for medical transport, body retrieval services, and probably a career counselor. Chaos emerged from the shadows again, that distinctive shuffling walk bringing him to the edge of the porch. He stared at Pratt. Pratt stared back. The moment stretched like pulled polymer. Then Pratt did something that made every non-human present question his survival instincts. He sat down on the ground, cross-legged, and opened the container. The smell of peanut butter wafted across the compound, and Chaos's nose twitched. "Hey, buddy," Pratt said, his voice low and calm. "I know you're doing your job. That's good. Tommy's lucky to have you watching his back. But here's the thing, we're not here to hurt him, we're here to help. His parents got called away for an emergency, remember? The medical transport?" The honey badger tilted his head, considering. Then he made a sound that was somehow less aggressive, more questioning. "Yeah, that's right. They'll be back soon. But until then, we need to check on Tommy. Make sure he's okay. You understand that, right? You want him safe, we want him safe. We're on the same side here." Pratt held out a glob of peanut butter on his finger. Vesh was about to order him to retreat when Chaos shuffled forward, sniffed the offering, and very carefully licked it off Pratt's hand. "Good boy," Pratt said, and that phrase again, loaded with meaning. "Now, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to stand up very slowly, and I'm going to walk into the house. Just me, nobody else. I'm going to check on Tommy, make sure he's safe and sound, and then we're all going to wait together until his parents get home. Sound fair?" Chaos finished the peanut butter, sneezed once, and then turned and walked back into the house. He paused at the door, looked back at Pratt, and made a sound that the translator interpreted as, "Well, are you coming or not?" Pratt stood, brushed off his uniform, and followed the honey badger inside. The door closed behind them. leaving the entire patrol standing in stunned silence. "Did that just happen?" Sergeant Mira asked, her tentacles slowly unknotting. "I believe," Vesh said carefully, "we just witnessed interspecies communication at its finest." Her comm unit chirped again. Pratt's voice came through, warm with amusement. "Commander, you should see this. Tommy's fine, sleeping like a rock. Chaos is currently lying across the doorway to his bedroom like a very furry, very grumpy security system. The kid's got a death grip on a stuffed dinosaur, and there's evidence that Chaos has been checking on him every 20 minutes, which explains why we kept seeing him on the porch. He was doing perimeter checks." "And the honey badger accepts your presence?" "Oh yeah, we're best friends now. He's currently glaring at me like I might be considering stealing his peanut butter, but it's more of a friendly glare than a murderous one. Progress." Vesh felt the tension draining from her shoulders, though she kept her professional demeanor. "Maintain position. The parents should be returning within the hour. And, Pratt." "Yes, Commander?" "Excellent work. Though I'm adding a note to your file about proper protocol for approaching aggressive fauna." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Understood, Commander. Though for the record, Chaos isn't aggressive. He's protective. There's a difference." As Vesh settled in to wait for the Morrison parents to return, she pulled up the human database section again, scrolling past the entries on honey badgers to a broader category, labeled Human Bonding Behaviors with Other Species. The file was 17,000 pages long and growing. She was going to need more meditation time. The Morrison parents arrived in a whirlwind of panicked apologies and frantic energy that made Vesh's antenna ache. Marcus Morrison was a tall, broad-shouldered man with graying hair and worry lines that seemed permanently etched into his forehead. His partner, Elena, was shorter, with olive skin and eyes that darted between the assembled patrol members like she was calculating exactly how much trouble they were in. "Commander Vesh, I am so sorry," Marcus began, his hands gesturing wildly in that peculiar human way that seemed to burn excess nervous energy. The emergency call came through about the atmospheric processor malfunction at Site Delta. Elena's the only certified engineer in 3 sectors who could handle the repairs. We tried to bring Tommy, but he was sleeping so peacefully, and Chaos was right there, and we thought 30 minutes. 45 tops. It turned into 3 hours. Elena finished, her voice tight with guilt. The malfunction was worse than reported. If we hadn't fixed it, 17 families would have lost life support by morning. But we should have woken Tommy. We should have. "Your child is perfectly safe," Vesh interrupted, holding up one hand to stem the tide of human anxiety. "Officer Pratt is inside with him now, and your companion animal performed admirably." Marcus's expression shifted from panic to something resembling pride. "Chaos didn't let anyone near him." "Your honey badger," Cross said, his voice still holding a tremor of residual fear, "has nerves made of neutronium and the territorial instincts of a dreadnought-class battle cruiser. He held off an entire patrol unit for 3 hours without breaking a sweat." "He doesn't really sweat," Elena said absently, already moving toward the house. "Different cooling system, more like panning, but he considers that undignified, so he mostly just radiates aggressive determination." The front door opened before Elena reached it, and Officer Pratt emerged, carrying a sleepy Tommy Morrison in his arms. The child was clutching a purple stuffed dinosaur that had clearly seen better days, one eye missing and stuffing protruding from a seam along its tail. Tommy's brown hair stuck up in 17 different directions, and he was making the soft grumbling sounds that Vesh's database assured her were normal for recently awakened human juveniles. Chaos padded out behind them, his earlier aggression replaced with something that almost resembled satisfaction. He made a huffing sound and pressed against Elena's legs as she reached for her son. "Hey there, Space Cadet," Elena murmured, gathering Tommy into her arms. "Did you have a good nap?" Tommy blinked slowly, processing his surroundings with the delayed comprehension of the recently unconscious. His gaze traveled from his mother's to Officer Pratt, to the assembled patrol members, and finally to Commander Vesh. His eyes widened. "Wow," he breathed. "Are those real mandibles? Do they hurt? Can you pick stuff up with them? How many arms do you have? Is that your natural color or is it like makeup? Do you eat regular food or special alien food? Does your ship go faster than light? What's faster than light feel like? Does it feel like anything? Do you have a—" "Tommy," Marcus said gently. "Maybe let the nice commander breathe between questions." "Sorry," Tommy said, not sounding sorry at all. "It's just really cool. We don't get many visitors. Mostly just the supply shuttles, and they never stay to talk. Are you staying to talk? Do you want to see my rock collection? I have 43 different types now. Well, 42 because one turned out to be dried mud. But that's still pretty good, right?" Vesh found herself experiencing an emotion her translator couldn't quite identify. Something between amusement and exhaustion, with notes of bewilderment. "Your rock collection sounds very impressive, Tommy Morrison. Perhaps another time." "He's been asking questions since he learned to talk," Marcus explained, settling a hand on his son's shoulder. "We've explained about giving people time to answer, but the concept hasn't fully taken hold." Chaos, apparently deciding the reunion had lasted long enough, made an imperious sound and head-butted Elena's leg. She laughed and set Tommy down, who immediately crouched to wrap his arms around the honey badger's stocky frame. "Did you protect the house while we were gone?" Tommy asked, pressing his face into Chaos's fur. "Did you do a good job?" The honey badger suffered the embrace with the patience of a saint, though his eyes tracked every patrol member still standing in his territory. The message was clear. The situation was resolved, but he wouldn't forget who had shown up armed on his porch. "He did an exceptional job," Pratt said, crouching down to Tommy's level. "Chaos kept everyone safe until your parents got home. He's basically a hero." "I know," Tommy said matter-of-factly. "Chaos is always a hero. One time a really big bird tried to take my sandwich during our picnic, and Chaos chased it for like a whole mile. The bird probably still has nightmares." "I don't doubt that for a second," Pratt agreed, straightening up. He turned to Vesh and offered a crisp salute. "Commander, with your permission, I believe this situation is resolved. The Morrison family is secure, no harm came to any party, and we all learned valuable lessons about interspecies communication." Vesh returned the salute, already mentally composing the incident report that would somehow need to explain this entire afternoon without making her department look completely incompetent. "Agreed, Officer Pratt. Patrol 7, pack up and return to base. The Morrisons, I'll need to conduct a brief follow-up interview for the official record. Standard procedure following any emergency response involving a minor." The patrol members dispersed with visible relief, their equipment clattering as they secured weapons that had never been fired. Cross paused as he passed Vesh, his mandibles clicking softly. "Commander, for what it's worth, I've been doing this job for 12 cycles across 6 different colonies. This is the first time I've ever been outsmarted by something weighing less than my lunch." "Noted," Vesh said dryly. "I'm sure the review board will find that detail fascinating." Inside the Morrison house, Vesh conducted her interview while Tommy alternated between petting Chaos and reorganizing his rock collection by color, then by size, then by what he called coolness factor. The dwelling was modest but comfortable, filled with the kind of eclectic decorations that humans seem to favor. Photographs covered one entire wall, showing the family in various locations and situations. Tommy as a baby, Tommy learning to walk, Tommy covered in mud, holding what might have been a frog. And in many of the photos, Chaos, watching over the child with the same intense focus he displayed on the porch. "When did you acquire Chaos?" Vesh asked, her datapad recording the conversation. Elena settled into a chair that creaked under her weight, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. "About 4 years ago, back on Earth. There was a rehabilitation center near our home in Colorado. Chaos had been found injured after defending a burrow from wild dogs. The handler said he'd fought off 3 of them before taking serious wounds. By the time they got him to the center, he was in bad shape. The vets said he probably wouldn't make it," Marcus continued, one hand absently stroking the honey badger's head as the creature sprawled across Tommy's lap. But they hadn't accounted for Badger's stubbornness. He pulled through, but his injuries meant he couldn't be released back into the wild. The center was looking for someone willing to take him. "And you volunteered?" Vesh asked, genuinely curious now. "Tommy volunteered," Elena said, smiling at her son. "We went to the center for an educational tour. Tommy was 3 years old, and he marched right up to Chaos's enclosure, looked him dead in the eye, and announced that they were going to be best friends." Tommy looked up from his rocks, grinning. He looked sad and mad, but also brave, like he'd been a hero but nobody knew it. So I told him I knew it, and he made this sound, kind of like grumbling but nicer, and I knew he understood. The handlers were skeptical, Marcus admitted. Honey badgers don't typically bond with humans, especially not children. But Tommy visited every day for 2 weeks. Just sat outside the enclosure, talking about his day, showing Chaos his toys, reading him stories. And gradually, Chaos started responding, moving closer, making those little huffing sounds that mean he's paying attention. By week 3, the handlers let Tommy inside the enclosure under strict supervision, Elena said. Chaos walked right up to him, sniffed his hand, and then curled up next to him for a nap. The head handler said it was the most remarkable thing she'd seen in 30 years of wildlife rehabilitation. Vesh made notes on her datapad, watching Tommy and Chaos interact. The child was explaining the different rock types now, holding each one up for the honey badger's inspection. Chaos appeared to be listening with great seriousness, occasionally sniffing a particularly interesting specimen. "When we got the opportunity to join the colony program," Marcus said, "we almost turned it down because we couldn't bear to leave Chaos behind. But the rehabilitation center worked with the colonial administration to get him cleared for transport. They classified him as a therapy animal." "Is Tommy in therapy?" Vesh asked carefully, aware she might be treading on sensitive ground. "Tommy has anxiety," Elena said simply. "Loud noises, unfamiliar situations, too many people at once. It can be overwhelming for him. But with Chaos around, he feels safe. The bond between them is stronger than anything we could have hoped for." As if to demonstrate, Tommy suddenly stood up, rocks forgotten, and announced he was hungry. He wandered toward what Vesh assumed was the kitchen, and Chaos immediately followed, his gait unhurried but purposeful. Through the doorway, Vesh could see Tommy pulling open a cooling unit and extracting what appeared to be fruit. Chaos sat at his feet, not begging, just present. "He follows Tommy everywhere," Marcus said quietly. "Sleeps outside his bedroom door at night. Waits outside the bathroom. When Tommy goes to school at the Colony Learning Center, Chaos sits by the window until he comes home. The teachers wanted to make him stay outside at first, but they changed their minds after Tommy had a panic attack during a fire drill. Chaos got him calm in 30 seconds flat. Now he has his own cushion in the classroom." "And the other children aren't afraid?" Vesh asked. "Some were at first," Elena admitted. "But Chaos is actually very gentle with kids. It's adults with weapons who show up at our house he has a problem with. No offense, Commander." "None taken," Vesh said, closing her datapad. "For the record, your son is remarkably well adjusted for a human juvenile in a frontier colony. And your companion animal, despite his aggressive reputation, performed exactly as a protective guardian should. However, I do need to emphasize the importance of ensuring Tommy has supervision in the future, even with Chaos present." "Understood," Marcus and Elena said simultaneously. "That said," Vesh continued, allowing her mandibles to curve in what she hoped, translated as a smile, "the galactic community could learn something from the bond between your son and his honey badger. Loyalty, courage, and unconditional protection are qualities that transcend species boundaries." Tommy returned from the kitchen with a mouthful of apple and purple juice running down his chin. He flopped back down next to Chaos and resumed his rock presentation as if the entire conversation hadn't happened. Chaos accepted a piece of apple from Tommy's outstretched hand and ate it with the dignity of royalty accepting tribute. Officer Pratt, who had been standing quietly by the door throughout the interview, cleared his throat. "Commander, if I may, there's something else worth noting for the record." "Go ahead, officer." "What happened today wasn't just Chaos protecting Tommy. It was also Tommy trusting Chaos to protect him. That kid slept through 3 hours of chaos, no pun intended, because on some level, he knew his friend was standing guard. That's the kind of trust that makes partnerships work, whether it's human and animal, or human and Venlati, or any other combination of species trying to make it out here on the frontier." Vesh considered this, watching the boy and the honey badger exist in their own small universe of rocks and apples and absolute certainty in each other. "A profound observation, Officer Pratt. I'll make sure it's included in my report." As Vesh and her team prepared to depart, Tommy suddenly jumped up and ran to her, rock clutched in his small fist. "Wait! You said you couldn't see my collection today, but you should have at least one. This is my favorite. It's got sparkles in it, see?" He held up a small stone that did indeed contain flecks of something that caught the light. Vesh accepted it carefully, cradling it in one of her hands. "This is very generous, Tommy Morrison. I'll treasure it." "Cool," Tommy said. "Now when people ask why you have a rock, you can tell them about today, about how Chaos was super brave and how aliens came to our house, and how everyone was friends in the end. Stories are better when you have evidence." "Indeed they are," Vesh agreed, slipping the rock into her utility pouch. "Thank you." Outside, as the patrol shuttles prepared for departure, Lieutenant Cross approached Vesh one final time. His stress fractures had mostly faded, though his posture still suggested a being who'd recently questioned all his life choices. "Commander, I've been thinking about what Pratt said, about trust and partnerships." "Yes? Do you think there's a training manual somewhere that teaches humans how to befriend terrifying predators? Because if there is, I'd like to requisition a copy. For research purposes." Vesh's mandibles clicked in genuine amusement this time. "If such a manual exists, Lieutenant, I suspect it would be 1 page long and consist entirely of the phrase, 'Be brave, be kind, and carry peanut butter.' That's it. That's the whole secret. That appears to be the entire foundation of human philosophy, yes." The flight back to the orbital station was quiet, giving Vesh time to process the afternoon's events. She pulled out the rock Tommy had given her, turning it over in her hands. The sparkles caught the cabin lights, throwing tiny reflections across the walls. Her comm unit chirped, displaying a message from the Galactic Council's Colonial Affairs Office. They'd received the preliminary incident report and wanted clarification on several points, particularly the part where a domesticated Earth predator had successfully defended against trained patrol officers for multiple hours. Vesh smiled, her mandibles curving in satisfaction. Let them question it. Let them review the footage from the body cameras. Let them debate the wisdom of humans keeping creatures like honey badgers as companion animals. She'd been there. She'd seen a 6-year-old child sleep peacefully through potential danger because he knew, with absolute certainty, that his friend would protect him. She'd watched a creature barely 40 centimeters long face down armed soldiers without hesitation. She'd witnessed Officer Pratt communicate across species barriers with nothing but patience and peanut butter. And she'd learned something that no amount of database entries or cultural briefings could have taught her. Humans didn't just survive in the galaxy. They thrived. And they brought their friends along for the ride, no matter how improbable, aggressive, or flat-out dangerous those friends might be. Her second-in-command appeared on the comm screen, concern evident in his expression. "Commander, the Council wants a full detailed report by tomorrow. They're particularly interested in your recommendation regarding continued human colonization in frontier zones." Vesh glanced down at the sparkly rock in her hand, then out at the colony world rotating below. Somewhere down there, a small boy was probably still explaining rocks to a honey badger who listened like every word mattered. Somewhere down there, parents were hugging their child and thanking a creature that most species would classify as a dangerous pest. Somewhere down there, Officer Pratt was probably eating peanut butter straight from the jar, and planning his next cross-species diplomatic mission. "Tell the Council," Vesh said carefully, "that my recommendation is unconditional approval. The humans are exactly where they need to be, and if anyone questions that decision, they can file their complaints with Chaos. I'm told he's very good at addressing concerns." Her second-in-command blinked. "Chaos? The honey badger commander. Trust me, after meeting him, you'll understand." The comm screen went dark, and Vesh settled back into her seat, already composing the full report in her mind. It would be thorough, professional, and completely accurate. She'd detail every moment of the standoff, every strategic decision Chaos had made, every instance of interspecies cooperation that had led to the peaceful resolution. And somewhere in the middle, buried in official language and proper formatting, she'd include the truth that mattered most. Sometimes the best protection in the galaxy came in the smallest, scrappiest, most determined packages. Sometimes courage looked like a child sleeping soundly because he trusted his friend. Sometimes wisdom meant sitting down, offering peanut butter, and acknowledging that you were all on the same side. The humans understood this instinctively. Perhaps, Vesh thought, turning the sparkly rock over one more time, it was time the rest of the galaxy learned. Her datapad chimed with an incoming message from Elena Morrison. It was brief. "Thank you for understanding. Tommy wants to know if you'd like to come to his birthday party next month. Chaos promises not to challenge anyone to single combat. Probably." Vesh found herself laughing, the sound echoing in the quiet shuttle. She typed back a response. "I would be honored. And please assure Chaos that I'll bring my own peanut butter as a peace offering." 3 minutes later, "Tommy says you're officially his second favorite alien now. First place is still held by the Quillen teacher who let him bring 17 rocks to show and tell. But second is really good." Vesh smiled and tucked her datapad away. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled past in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the small dramas playing out on frontier worlds. But those small dramas mattered. They were how bridges got built, how understanding grew, how a honey badger and a little boy could teach an entire galaxy about courage. The shuttle docked smoothly at Mercy's Hope, and Vesh made her way through the corridors toward her office. Tomorrow would bring meetings, reports, and probably several strongly worded communications from council members who thought humans were too unpredictable for frontier settlement. She'd handle it all with professionalism and patience, but tonight, she placed a sparkly rock on her desk where she could see it every day. Evidence, as Tommy had said. Evidence that sometimes the best stories were the ones where everyone went home safe, where understanding triumphed over fear, and where a very good boy named Chaos proved that size mattered far less than heart. Commander Vesh activated her personal log, her voice steady as she began the entry. Supplemental notes, Morrison incident. Today I learned that human children sleep like the dead when they feel safe. That honey badgers are essentially fury in fur form. That peanut butter is apparently a universal constant. And that sometimes, just sometimes, the scariest thing in the galaxy is also the most loyal. End log. She looked at the rock one more time, its sparkles catching the office lights. Tomorrow she'd attend meetings. Next month she'd attend a birthday party. And somewhere on the frontier colony below, a small boy and his improbable best friend were probably already planning their next adventure. The galaxy, Vesh decided, was definitely big enough for both of them.